Hey guys, my name is JC and welcome to today's gameplay video featuring the Ur-Dragon. This is a deck looking to combine changelings with the best tribal lords that each tribe has to offer, closing out the game with either combat damage or a specific tribal lord effect. If you enjoy how this deck plays, you'll find a deck tech on the channel explaining all the included cards as well as the overall strategy. But with that said, let's see if we can turn this meme into a dream. Looks like we won the die roll, so we'll be going first. Let's hope we get a good opening hand here, and it looks like we have. Risen Reef is absolutely perfect to have in an opening hand, and we've got more than enough lands to get to it. We also have a changeling to be able to trigger it, so I think this is a hard keep. And we're playing against Sisay, Kanaeus and Tiro, and Katilda. And we draw a Malcolm for turn, so more mana ramp. So let's keep it simple to start. We'll play our Wooded Foothills. We'll crack that, go find one of our Triomes. And I think here we'll get our Ketria Triome down, our red, blue, green one, and we'll pass the turn. Sisay just plays a land, and they cast an Elvish Mystic. And that's it for them. Kanaeus plays a land, and that's it for them. Katilda plays their land for turn, and they also leave the turn there. So we draw a Najeela the Blade Blossom. Well, this has been quite the good hand. Now, does that change what we were doing from our previous plans? I think it does actually. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to get our Mistwalker down. So we'll start by playing a Giltleaf Palace. We'll reveal our Mistwalker to our opponent so it comes in untapped. And now we'll get that down so that for turn 3 we can have Najeela out and we can already start triggering it, creating 1/1 White Warriors. And if we're lucky and our opponents don't get any creatures down, we can very quickly build up a small army to hopefully put a lot of pressure on them. So let's just leave the turn there. Sisay plays a tapped land. And now they cast a Goshinte of Boundless Vigor. Trample, and at the beginning of your end step you may pay 1. When you do, put a 1/1 counter on target shrine for each shrine you control. So it looks like we have a Sisay Shrine deck here. There go Shintai triggers, but they can't pay for it at the moment. And unfortunately, it looks like we have a scoop there. Not really sure why they scooped, but unfortunately is a common occurrence on Magic Online. But we'll play on. Kanaeus plays a land, and they leave it there. And we draw an Unesh Cryosphinx Sovereign. Really, really great card draw engine, but we don't have to worry about that just yet. So what we'll do is we'll start by playing our Polluted Delta. We'll go crack it. We'll get ourselves a Watery Grave, which we will have come into play untapped. And now let's get down our Najeela. Now we're going to move to combat. We'll swing in at the Kanaeus player. That's going to trigger Najeela. And we'll actually have this one swing in at the Sisay player. So if they want to block with their shrine, they're more than willing to. We'll be happy to make that trade. They let the damage through, and we just pass the turn there. So next turn, if the Kanaeus player doesn't get any creatures down, we're going to generate a lot of warriors there. We're going to generate another 3 on attack with all of our creatures. Sisay plays a land. Tapped, and now they cast a Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest. At the beginning of their pre-combat main phase, they add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of shrines they control. So that will start to accelerate their mana pretty well when we hit next turn, but I think we're getting ahead of them a little bit in regards to board pressure. It may not be enough if either player doesn't really find an answer to Najeela soon. And fortunately, even if they do take care of it, we've got some pretty powerful tribal lords in our hand to back ourselves up and keep us going in the game, keep applying pressure. Especially Risen Reef and Unesh, they're going to definitely draw us a lot of cards and get a few lands down, hopefully. Kanaeus plays a land, and now they play a Wedding Announcement. At the beginning of their end step, they put an invitation counter on it. If they attacked with 2 or more creatures that turn, they draw a card. Otherwise, they make a 1/1 white human creature token. Then it transforms once it has 3 or more counters of it, and gives them basically a buff to all their creatures, a +1/+1. That's fine by us. They move to their end step, so Wedding Announcement triggers. So they'll make their 1/1 human token, and that's it for their turn. So we're looking in a pretty good position at the moment. And we draw an Aveline Changeling. That's great, it's got flying, so we have more evasion to be able to get our attackers through. So we'll start by playing our land, and we're going to reveal our Avian Changeling, so it doesn't have to come into play tapped. Then I'm actually going to get Malcolm down here so we can start generating treasures. And now let's move to combat. We'll swing Mistwalker and Najeela over at the Kanaeus player, and we'll send our warrior token over at the Sisay player. I still don't think they'll want to block because they'll want to have that shrine there for their Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest, but even if they do, it won't be too much of an issue. So now that triggers Najeela 3 times, so we make 3 warriors, and we'll also send all of the warriors over at Sisay. It looks like Kanaeus does block our Najeela with their token. Now our Malcolm triggers, making us a treasure. Now in our second main phase, we definitely could cast the Avian Changeling here, but I'd like to hold it up for Risen Reef. So I think we'll just pass the turn here because we're in a pretty strong position at the moment. and I don't want to dump my hand out on the board, especially if someone does have a board wipe in hand. So Sisay's Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest triggers, so they'll add 2 mana to their mana pool, and they decide to add 2 white mana. Now they play a land. Do we see their commander come down now? And they cast a Sphere of Safety. Well, that's probably the answer they needed. Creatures can't attack them unless them or their planeswalkers, unless the controller pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments they control. Absolutely great answer. Now they hit their end step and their Goshintai of Boundless Vigor triggers. They do have 1 mana left over, so let's see if they use it, and they do. So now their shrine becomes a 3/3, and that's their turn. Kanaos plays a land, and now they get down their commander, Kanaos and Tiro of Meletis. At the beginning of their end step, draw a card. Each player may put a land card from their hand onto the battlefield, and then each opponent who didn't draws a card. So Kanaos triggers first. We're going to choose to draw a card here, so we won't put a land into play. And Heron Blade Elite, that's a very good card. And now they also generate a human token. And that is their turn. Oh, and what a top deck to get. Harmonic Sliver. Absolutely perfect answer to what they're doing over there, and especially because Sisay runs so many enchantments. Normally the issue with Harmonic Sliver is when you play it, it has to destroy an artifact or enchantment, so once you've wiped out all your opponent's stuff, unfortunately it does mean you have to hit your own if you have any on the battlefield, but this is exactly what we needed to keep the pressure up on Sisay. So let's start, we'll play our land. Then we're going to follow up with Risen Reef. Risen Reef triggers. It looks like we're getting a Woodland Changeling to our hand, so we'll put that to our hand. Now we'll crack our Misty Rainforest. We'll need an untapped land, so we'll grab a Hallowed Fountain. We'll pay the 2 life, so it comes in untapped. And let's get our Harmonic Sliver down. And we're going to target that Sphere of Safety there. So I think we've done everything we need to. Let's move to combat. We'll send our warriors towards Sisay. Mistwalker can go over at Kanaos, so can Malcolm. And we'll leave an Najeela back. I think that's what we want to do for our attacks. That triggers Najeela. And we'll have the tokens coming in at the Kanaos player this time. Because with the Harmonic Sliver out at the moment, I feel we can take care of all the enchantments and any problematic permanents that come down over Sisay's side. The Shrine blocks one of the warrior tokens, and 2 other warriors get blocked by Kanaos and the other human token there. Now Malcolm triggers, making us a treasure token. And now in our post-combat main phase, we do have a Changeling in hand, which thanks to our commander only cost 1 green mana, and we have just enough to be able to cast it. So we're going to be able to get a Risen Reef trigger and a Harmonic Sliver trigger off that. So let's cast our Woodland Changeling. And we're going to target the Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest to stop our opponent from getting a lot of mana. Risen Reef also triggers. And we do get a land, thankfully, so we'll put that into play tapped. No, we won't want to pay 2 life because we can't make it untap anyway. And I think that's going to be our turn, and a pretty damn good turn that was as well. So we'll pass it over to our opponents. So right now they're both looking in a bit of a tough place. Really a board wipe's what they need to get themselves out of this situation. Or at the very least they need to nullify Najeela and Harmonic Sliver most likely. Especially the Sisay player, that Harmonic Sliver is really undoing all their plans. And now they cast an Eidolon of Blossoms. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, they get to draw a card. We're fine with that. And with that, it looks like the Shrine player has scooped. I think they've probably seen enough. They probably feel like they can't get past the Harmonic Sliver. And to be honest, I don't know how long the Kanaos player is going to hang around, especially with how far we are ahead now. It's the problem with scooping, unfortunately, is it does leave the other player who's left in a bit of a tight situation, especially if someone else is ahead. And they cast a Xenagos the Reveler. Its +1 ability add X mana in any combination of red or green, where X is the number of creatures you control. They can also make a 2/2 red and green Satire creature. That's fine by us. From the looks of things, I think we pretty much have the game here. So they activate Xenagos, add in mana. So they'll get 1 mana off of its trigger. And that's it for them, they concede. Well, that was a relatively short game, but let's go to the wrap up and discuss what happened. So to start with, it was a bit of a shame that we had a player scoop so early, but fortunately it didn't affect any of the other players directly. We had a great opening hand, and our draws continued to be great, especially Najeela, who applied a serious clock to our opponent so early in the game. Unfortunately, the Kanaos player was just off to too slow a start compared to us, and once Sisay conceded, I think they saw the writing on the wall. But overall, we got to see the deck perform really well. We saw the power of landing one of our win conditions early, and if the game had gone longer, I think we would have seen the power of our ramp pieces too. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing it in action, and for some of you, it may have been just enough to consider brewing your own version. Until next time, guys.